Hey there, Chad here, and this is Kerbal Space Program in 2022. And this is the second part in my Apollo Style Moon mission series. Looks like this will be a three-part episode. The current status is we built our rocket, we launched, and we are in orbit around Kerbin. We're getting ready to separate and put the rocket in a different configuration and then send it over to the moon. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, in that video, one thing I mentioned is I wanted to have two pilots. Of course, I have Jeb, and then I also grabbed Zellberry. The reason I wanted two pilots is I need a pilot in this part of the ship when I separate, just in case something goes wrong. I need a pilot over here who can use the stability assist and things like that. Without a pilot in there, I would have to do it entirely manually, and if the ship starts to roll or something like that, we've got big problems. So what I'm going to do is right click here and say transfer crew, and I'm going to pick Zellberry. Really doesn't matter, I could put Jeb over there, 6 of 1. Zellberry wants some lunar module time, I guess. We'll move him over there. He will not be piloting the LEM, that will be Jeb. Zellberry will be the command module pilot, and he will stay in orbit around the moon once we get there. Okay, so we have that set up. Now the next thing is, one of the tricks I did was, it's not so much a trick, but it's how you get this kind of mission done. I put a docking port here. So the docking port is connected to the separator. Instead of firing the separator, what I'm going to do is just release the docking port. That's the first step. And there we go. So now I'm piloting this part of the ship. This is separate. Technically, this will become my target. What I want to do right now, though, is Jeb is going to just gently nudge the ship away a little bit. Then I'm going to double click on this port, and that becomes my new target. I'm going to turn on the docking assist, and I am going to hit V a few times until I have camera in locked position. And we've done this before for rendezvous. What this allows you to do is line yourself up behind it, and now your controls are kind of like sort of first person-ish, I guess. It's third person technically, but the controls will match what we would expect them to do. Okay, so that's step one. We need to stop that drift. So we'll do that. Get this guy way over here. So we've kept a pretty good vertical alignment. Our horizontal alignment has suffered a little bit. All in all, we're in kind of decent shape here. That was not nearly as bad as it could have been. I've had situations where that other ship starts to roll. Also, Matt, I think it's Matt Lone, he has some videos on how to do this like docking cheat where it lines the ships up a little bit better. They call it the Lone maneuver, believe it or not. And I'm not doing that right now. I'm not fully sure I remember how it works. I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way and fly this bad boy in. Looking good. I remember hearing Scott Manley once say that, you know, the closing distance of a tenth of a meter a second would be suicide in space. So that was a really fast connection there, but nonetheless we are connected and we have a single ship. Okay, so the idea is that we will use this engine to get us to the moon, and that's beautiful. I could, in fact, I will move. Well, I'm gonna wait for now. Yeah, I will. I'm gonna move Zellberry back to the other module. Okay, so here's something that's different though, and this is another one of these things that's kind of a trick. So right now, the command module, this one right here, is where we control the ship from. So relative to it, it thinks that is forward, and this would be backwards. And what I mean by that is it considers the nose of the ship to be pointing forward, but it's not the nose of the overall thing, it's the nose of this particular piece. So if I tell it to go prograde, what it's going to do is flip around. As you can see, we're going left to right here. It's going to flip around And if I fire this engine, it's not going to be prograde. It's technically going to be retrograde to what I'm doing. That's because it's piloting it from this unit right now. What I want to do is I'm going to change it to tell it to control from here. And as soon as I do that, notice we're still clicked on prograde. It's going to flip the ship back around, which is what I want it to do. I want the engine to be at the back end of the ship, not the front end of the ship, right? So that's what we're trying to accomplish there. And that's an important piece of this whole process. It's easy to miss, but essentially it's essential, and that will get us lined up. Now, once we're in a decent prograde, I'm going to once again hit the stability assist so I don't forget. I'm just going to roll the ship to kind of get it I like the 8-ball being like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to go out here. Here's our ship. Here's the moon. So we want to have our node over here, the node that will execute to get to the moon. We have 561 meters per second of fuel. Is that right? I guess that's right. And I'm going to fast forward through some of this because this gets tedious, right? Take a little bit of time to get it really lined up well. Here. You're already the target. Oh, that's actually not so bad. I want to add a maneuver. I just want to get this maneuver. Easier to do it this way. Okay, there we go. And now I just want to kick this around to make that, well, awesome. That's exactly what I want to happen. Bend that down a little bit. 16 will work. That'll get us close enough. We'll probably have some, margin of error that's going to make that move a little bit, and we'll just have to adjust again a little later. Let's go out here and look at this ship. Okay. So that's all looking good. Feels like this has more fuel and more push in it than it is indicating, and I'm not quite sure. I feel like something's not quite right there. It'll be fine. We're going to need 845 at the very worst. We're going to have to, we'll get halfway there and we'll figure something out. Come back to looking at the ship. 7 minutes to that burn. It's a long burn. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Taking a quick save there, just in case. And we're going to fast forward. Under a minute. Get it down to 20-ish. Oh, I'm not on my mark. That's not a good thing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what we're measuring here. That's the next stage. So I think we'll be okay on fuel. Halfway done with our burn. Yeah, we might be close. I have to see what happens here. Okay, let's see how well we did. That's interesting. Let's take a look here. I'm on the wrong side. Okay, so yeah, I think we want to come back over here and we want to tell it retro. And once it settles in, come back here, go ahead and fire that engine. Yeah, there we go. And that's 80,000. That's a little more than we want, so I'm just going to use RCS. Let's get it down to 20. Let's put it at 15. That'll do, right there. Okay, we still have a couple of drops of fuel in here. But honestly, we probably will want to use this engine here to do this next step. Yeah, so I've got these engines backwards, it looks like. This one is the lunar engine, and this one is the command module engine. So we'll do that. We do have a separation here that needs to happen because we're going to cut the trans-injection orbit segment. So this guy should fire, right? Yep, that's him. Okay. So I think we can go ahead and go without the rest of that fuel. I don't think there's enough there to really help us once we get to the moon. So there we go. That didn't cut it loose though. Let's do that once again. There it goes. Now it's kind of hard to see here, but maybe you can see it a little bit. That separator has come loose, and it will eventually swing free of the rest of this. We can help that happen a little bit. Of course, I just changed our orbit. The further away you are from where you're heading, the more a little bit of energy affects you. So as you can see, that it's quite a bit of an impact. And we're just going to let that float away. Now, I suppose what we can do is set ourselves up to get to like a spot out here. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to warp to there. And as you can see, those pieces flew well away from us, and we're coming in on the moon. Okay, we have a little bit of time here. Not a ton though, but we have a little bit. This separator is that one, okay? So I think I want to go ahead and have this separator fire now. I want to get rid of this piece so that engine is exposed. And there we go. Now, I had switched it so that we were piloting from here. At this point, I want to come back over and pilot from here. So we're going to say control from here. And it's going to flip it around because it's doing its thing. I'm probably still set to prograde. That engine is active, that engine is not. Okay, now we really don't want any more stages to fire. We're going to do the rest of this manually. Might be easier to see from this way, but what I want to do, I want to get into an orbit around the moon. And we are in a retrograde. That's good, that's what we want. So come out here. Did it say we were at exactly, like it said we were exactly at 14,000. Okay. 14.8, 13. that'll do. That's just fine for what we need to do. So we're going to end up landing probably somewhere over here. Typically, we would want to land on the lit side, facing the planet. But for this particular mission, I didn't wait long enough to launch. I probably should have done that. Okay, nonetheless, we're going to have a 274 meters per second burn here coming up. And that's an hour and 30 minutes away. So we'll fast forward for that one. But we can go ahead and get adjusted for it. I'm a little, There we go, okay. And there it is, okay. We're going to go ahead and fast forward to the burn. It's about a 30-second burn. You can see our pieces kind of floating around the ship. One of them hit the planet, the moon. There we go. 45 seconds. We should see this engine light up, because what we want to do is slow down to get into orbit. Speeding up just a little bit. And hit it. Okay. How close do we come? 9,000 on the low side, 15 on the high. Probably want to boost that up a little, so I'm going to use RCS for that. 10 and 16, that'll be fine. That's good. It's almost 11. Okay. So we're going to want to pick a meaty spot in the sun over here to land. I think we're going to probably look to land somewhere in that area. And come back over here and see what's going on. So I do want to circularize this orbit a little more. I'm realizing the point is to have it so when this ship comes back around, when we need to meet back up with it, we can launch and catch it pretty easily. And if it's got a really eccentric orbit, that can be a little more difficult to kind of figure out. So we're going to go ahead and add a node here, and all I'm going to do is just play with these numbers. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to right click it. There we go. I'm just going to play with those numbers until they give me a set that's relatively close to, there we go, 16.6 and 16.2, that's pretty darn good. And that's well before we get to where we want to land. So this is completely, this is good. You notice it's only a 5 meter per second burn. It's a half a second at full throttle. So this is going to be a really delicate maneuver. Next to nothing with regards to thrust. This would probably be easier to do with RCS. But we'll go ahead and get to it. You can see these are going to continue to move along, and they will re-enter an orbit around Kerbin, more than likely. We can track that later if we'd like. We'll ultimately just kill them. But generally, I try to make it so my parts crash into the moon or wherever I'm heading, so I don't have a bunch of debris hanging around. But it's not always perfect, and there is the ability in the tracking center to remove those items, and I do use that pretty liberally. I know it's not entirely realistic, but you know, it's a game. We have to remind ourselves of that sometimes, but it is just a game. So, okay, we're at about 20 seconds. I think we'll go ahead and use engine for this. I'm literally going to do one tap of the shift, which will bump it up the minimal amount, and we'll go from there. I'll do that at about a second. Right now. That was 2 clicks. Make it 3, and kill it. There it is. Okay. We have a 16.1 and a 16.2, so I'm going to say that's pretty close to circular. Okay, next up, we have to do the separation of the ships and prepare to find a spot to land. And this might be a good spot too. We pass right over those craters though, but right here could be good. And I think right here could be good. Anywhere we go will be good. We'll make it work. I'm inside. Okay, I'm seeing artifacts from the planet. I'm on the planet side, or the moon. I'm on the moon side. Okay, so here's what I want to do next. We want to move, so we've got everybody in here. I'm going to move Jeb and Bob into the lunar module. So Jeb is going to transfer, and then Bob is going to transfer. And there we have it. I want to see how much RCS I have. So I've been using monopropellant from here. I'm going to transfer monopropellant. You hold Alt and right click in order to open 2 of them. And what I can do, I believe I can, maybe I can't. Okay, yeah, something. Yeah, RCS tank. I guess I can't transfer the fuel. I thought I could. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to right-click him, Alt, right-click him. There we go. And what I can do is pump out of here and into here. So he'll have a full tank just in case. There we go. And then we also want to check his fuel. He's fine on fuel. We're good to go. We can separate. Now I think what's going to happen as soon as I separate is we're going to actually be commanding this ship again, and I'll have to switch to this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click Rendezvous on Flight Engineer, and what it'll do is if I have a target, it'll allow me to switch to the target quickly. So let's go ahead and do an undock. And yeah, we're centered on this one. So I'm going to double click here. That makes that the target, and then we're going to switch to target. And we are now commanding this unit. We know that because we have Jeb and Bob on it. Okay. Turn on SAS. And one other thing, we do not have an active engine just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and stage that. I'm going to, I don't want to do that. There, we're just going to go ahead and do that, and we should be able to. No, the engine hasn't staged yet. So there, now it's staged. And then as soon as we hit any thrust, it'll take it. But for now, we want to back away from this ship. And we're going to want to kind of get out of the way of that one. We just want to change our orbit enough that we won't collide with them when we start maneuvering. I think we will start a maneuver. So the way I do this to kind of get an idea of where I could be landing is I try to get this line and this line on top of each other. And then I know that this is roughly the track that the ship is taking. So I have a really good spot here to try to make a landing. So I'm going to put a node here-ish. And we'll pull that in. Okay, there we go. So we have a whole lot of delta V. We're going to use about 300 of it. And we'll want to do that right about there. It's a fairly long burn, not impossibly long. The landing on the moon is fairly easy at this point. We've done it many, many times in these videos with probes and with manned missions. So not too intimidated by this part of it. But what I want to do is go ahead and get this close. Normally I don't even do a node for this, but I kind of wanted to have an idea of where I was going to need to start with this particular maneuver. Now the other thing I could do, and in fact I think I'm going to, is I'm going to move this over a little because I want my trajectory to be a lot more abrupt. I want it to drop quickly, right? I don't want to have a lot of lateral movement as I get to the planet surface that I have to cancel out. So I think I'm even going to do this again. We're not going to land here. We're going to fire here, and then what will happen is we will continue to fire a little longer to bring that more in check like that. We'll end up probably landing right about here, be my guess. So we'll see. Accelerating time here for just a moment. And preparing. Here we go. So we passed kind of close to that. I probably needed to clear that a little more. I think NASA would have been upset with that, but in general we're okay. I'm going to go ahead and extend landing gear now. It does not affect our performance at all. And we're coming up on the end of that burn. Okay. Here we go. Since I had a target, that was kind of a mistake. I'm going to see if I can undo the target. Yeah, there we go. It was giving me the wrong vector there because it was basing it, well, the information I was seeing here was incorrect because it was basing it on the target, not on the orbit. This will be fine. So we're going to tell it to go retro. We're just going to lock in on that. I'm going to let it fall for a bit. We can bleed off a pretty good amount of speed at any particular time if we look at the vertical. So we're bleeding off about 3 meters per second right now, and that'll change a little bit. We're still going pretty fast horizontally. We need to slow both of those down. But we're also still really, really high. 10,000 meters. I mean, usually I start doing this in the maneuver closer to 8. And we will hit it now. We can hit land. This will tell us some stats like how far we are before impact. We're over a minute at this point. And you notice we're almost completely bled off our speed at this point. That's good. That's what we want. So we should start seeing some indicators of what the slope is going to be where we land. Right now it says 4.3 degrees. I'll take that. That's pretty small. You start getting to 12s, even 9s, but 12s and 17s, and you're kind of reconsidering, can I move a little bit? Something I can do here. So what this looks like to me is I could Yep, I could drift a little bit that way and might get a little bit better. Yeah, we're down to 1.4 degrees. Now that's not going to be exactly what we hit, but it should be pretty close. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kill the speed again. It's falling pretty fast. And then we'll try to keep that under closer tabs now. So we're down to under a meter per second in horizontal. And I accidentally hit the wrong button there. And we're going up temporarily. That was a mistake. The good news is it didn't spin the ship around. What can happen is he'll try to maintain that, and he'll flip the ship over, and you don't want to see that happen. Okay, there we go. So instead of using full engine maneuvering, I'm going to just use a percentage here. Right now we are thrusting more than gravity is pulling us. Our descent is slowing. Starting to get low enough that I want to slow down faster. Down to 14 meters per second of descent. If you listen to the video, the audio from the lunar landings, you'll hear them calling off numbers, and a lot of times what those numbers are is it's their vertical speeds and their horizontal speeds. You want those to effectively be zero, right? In order to stop. You'll also hear fuel callouts, how much fuel was left on the ship. So RCS isn't quite enough to slow the ship from descending. It's close though. Not quite enough though. Ground's starting to come up pretty quick. Just working the throttle at this point so we don't hit too fast. And there we are. Okay. That's the second step in this whole process. Third step is we will rendezvous with the command module and return to Kerbin, which is on the other side of this particular body right now, so we can't see it, but that's the plan. So thanks for watching this time. I hope you'll stay around for the third video that gets us home. But until next time, fair travels.